Okay. Well, first, I'd just like to say welcome and thank you to everybody who's joined the call. This is actually the first event that Danny and I have created under our Inner Freedom Outer Vision name, convention, whatever we want to call it. And it's an absolute privilege to be sharing our sort of knowledge, skills and learning with you, but equally that we can learn from you at the same time. At the end of the presentation, we'll take questions, comments, shares and or any feedback depending on time. But we're going to go through our presentation so that we can just sort of impart the knowledge that we want to share. Okay. Okay. Over to you, Danny.
Let me unmute myself. So basically, you know, everyone has been affected by overwhelm at some point, if not by yourself. And if you've never been affected by overwhelm, you're probably not showing up here for that reason. But, you know, we've have experiences with other people in our lives having overwhelm, as, you know, usually everybody has, it's affected everybody at some point. And a lot of times it's because we get caught up, like with me, it tends to be, I have so much to do and I have to do this, and or I should do this. And so it's that feeling of it's all too much. And whether it's a to-do list or just you're trying to feel too many feelings, or if, you know, sometimes you go into a place and you're just surrounded, you know, overwhelm comes in several different forms, but it's always that feelings of it's too much.
I think another thing I'd just add to that is that actually you can make the choice to not do.
Yep.
And quite often we condition ourselves to the fact that we must do, have to do, should do, but actually we can make the choice and decision not to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that word should.
Don't should on yourself.
Yeah, don't should on yourself. Yeah, exactly. So during the event, what we anticipate, and we'll say anticipate because what you achieve by the end of the event is your gift, not ours. But what we anticipate you will have achieved by the end of the session is to define what it feels like to not feel overwhelmed, to determine how you want to feel, tools to use when that overwhelm comes up, and creating an experience and vision to connect with, have a recipe to counteract the overwhelm, and equally strategies. So that's what we anticipate that you'll have gleaned by the end of the event. Okay. And this slide simply just shows what we're going to cover during the event. We're going to give you the introduction, who we are and how we came together, where the Inner Freedom Outer Vision came from, 5-minute brain dump, what triggers, meditation, and then how to deconstruct it. Okay. So I'm going to start off with who. Well, I'm Heidi. So I'm a wife, mum, grandmum of 6 children now. 5 of them are my step-grandchildren. In 2014, I retired. I medically retired because I hit overwhelm and burnout. I became so ill that I couldn't continue my job. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to carry on, but I just couldn't. And I had chronic mental and physical fatigue and ill health. And then so that was back in 2014. And in 2018, I started my personal development journey. I've done personal development all through my career, but I started a brand new development journey. And that was with Mind Valley and Lifebook. So I'll hand over to Danny. She can give you a little bit of history about herself.
Making sure I'm unmuted again. Okay. I'm Danny, and I am a wife, mother, caregiver, muse, tea lover, huge practitioner of gratitude and compassion. And in 2017, my life shifted when my husband lost the nerve function from his knees down, and he ended up being diagnosed with POEM syndrome a year later and needing treatment at Johns Hopkins, which is a For those of you who don't know, it's a specialized medical center in medical hospital in Maryland. And we had to live between two states, and he continued to lose the nerves in his hands. And it was a really challenging time. We were in the state of unknown. We had no idea if he would make it or not. But at the same time, with everything that we went through, it also really changed our lives for the better, because for one thing, we had life books while we were doing it, which completely shifted our mindset. And two, we decided the day of the diagnosis that we were going to look for the gifts. So whatever happened, we were going to find the gifts in this situation. And going through that experience and finding the gifts, looking back, it's been about 4 years since this all started, and we are two completely different people. And as a result of it. So
I think what's key for both of us, very different circumstances and very different things that have happened along the way, but actually our lives have changed so dramatically. And that was just in a few weeks. We became Lifebook ambassadors, which we continue to be to this day. Lifebook, for those that don't know, is a personal development program, and we can talk about that another time. But we both continue to this day as ambassadors for the Lifebook community, both within Mind Valley for those going through the early stages, and in Lifebook membership, where those that have continued their journey and doing a sort of deeper dive, if you like. And such is the change that Lifebook creates, that we both also went on to become Lifebook leaders, which is certified leaders. And that in turn led us on to, and the Lifebook leaders helps us to train individuals and groups and take them through the program with our support. But also it's allowed us to work together at a much deeper level, where we've created, I've got to say, the greatest and deepest bond and friendship, which in itself is truly extraordinary. We've never met, we're not in the same location geographically, but I hug Danny's children and she hugs my grandchild and talks to my daughter, several times a week. And that's worth its weight in gold of actually eliminating overwhelm, because we're just talking things out and sharing sort of tools and techniques with each other. And through that, we realized that we wanted to work together and take our learning to create what became our inner freedom, which was created by us having an outer vision. So us having our life books and their outer vision and the tools and techniques that we've learned over time and together created the inner freedom. And that's really how Inner Freedom Outer Vision came to be as a name. It was just something that came up through sort of discussion and chats and, oh, let's go do this. So it's starting a brand new journey for us.
Yep.
Anything you got to add?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
Like I said, it's, Heidi and I have a passion for inspiring people and helping people to just, when we talk to people, we like to help people raise their energy. We like to help support people. And I think that's one of the things that connects us and has been such a strong part of our relationship, is because we have formed our own, it's something we love to do for others, but then we, have been supporting each other, especially over the past few years. So yeah, I think that covers it.
Okay. You taking this one?
Am I taking this one?
I think so. But I can if you want me to.
It's basically, both of us have been on a journey of creating a vision for our best lives. And it is this vision that we have that it's our North Star. So, when you have a clear life vision, you can make decisions easier, because you can ask yourself, well, is this going to pull me towards my life vision, or will this pull me away from my life vision? And I mean, we've just learned so many skills along our journey, and we just want to share them. We just want to share them with other people. And right now, the vision for the vision or the purpose for going through this is to not feel overwhelmed, is to, and a lot of the tools that we're going to give you today will help you to move through overwhelm and just connect with the sense of what it feels like to not be overwhelmed. Because when you can connect your feelings to something, it makes it all the more powerful. And so yeah, your vision is to not feel overwhelmed, and the freedom are the strategies that we're going to give you to get there.
Okay. So
we're going to do a little activity. We're going to do the next thing we're going to do is a brain dump. So if you have a pen and paper, or you have some place to type, or you just want to work it through in your head, whatever's easiest, we're going to take about 5 minutes. I will get my little timer out. And before we start, we'll get yourself ready, and then just take a deep breath in and exhale. And we're just going to do a brain dump. And I want you to think about all of the things that are contributing to your overwhelm. And if your chest is tightening up, it's okay. We're going to take you out of this state. But right now, I want you to think about and jot down all of the things that are contributing to your overwhelm. And if you can think about what is your primary cause of overwhelm. So we're just going to take a deep breath in. We're going to exhale. And write down as many as you can. I feel like we need Jeopardy music. But the clock is started. And when 5 minutes are up, we'll move on to the next. But some things that you can think about when you're overwhelmed. Is your health involved? Your emotions, your social life, your career, finances. Maybe you don't have a vision for your life. Maybe you feel like you have a lot to do. Maybe it's too much. Could be particular people you feel overwhelmed around. Certain things at home. And nobody's going to see this but you. Like, we're not going to ask you to share. We just want you to capture as much as you can.
maybe you do have a vision, but you're overwhelmed at the thoughts of how you're going to get there.
Or there's something you want to accomplish and you're so focused on the how and trying to figure out the how that it seems that it's just too much. Or if you have a goal, you don't know how to get that goal accomplished, or it seems too big. Just let it flow. You're dumping everything onto that piece of paper or computer.
And you might have had a moment or time of overwhelm even in the past. What were the things that were involved that created that?
When I first did this exercise, I wrote down all my to-dos, which took much longer than 5 minutes. I had to stop myself.
When I first met Danny, she had so many to-do lists that the fact that she had so many to-do lists was overwhelming. I got overwhelmed at the amount of to-do lists that Danny had. So I could imagine why it was causing so much of a problem.
Yeah. You know, another thing that causes overwhelm are situations that are completely beyond our control. Not that there's,
yeah, sorry.
go ahead.
The other thing that creates overwhelm is just simply the thoughts in your head and the rabbit runs that you go on.
Yep.
And the what ifs.
So we've got about 1 minute to go. Dump as fast as you can. If you have finished your overwhelm list already, good on you.
Yes, absolutely. And later on today, tomorrow, a few days' time, there'll be other things that will come to mind. And that's equally okay.
Doing a brain dump always helps you to clear your mind. So you can always use this. This is just a simple quickie tool to just get it out of your head and you know, taking it out of your head and putting it on paper or somewhere else. So yeah, 15 seconds. And stop.
Okay. Okay. So simply put, we experience more than we can deal with at a particular point or moment in time. And that might creep up slowly, or it might come at you really fast. And different people will get overwhelmed in different ways. It can be because there's so much, a plethora of things that come your way that creates the overwhelm, but it can also be a slow, gradual drip feed of things. And it's what can you do to stop feeling overwhelmed? And that's really where we're going to go next. And this was something I created quite some time ago, in fact, back in 2019, which was creating emotional overwhelm recipe card. And it's a simple set of actions to help you shift from the moment or point of that overwhelm. Now, I had experienced a dramatic point of overwhelm back in 1997 when my daughter, who was just a few months old, I hadn't learned all the techniques back then of what's actually in this recipe card. These directions, as you'll see them there, had come over a period of time. And that's what then culminated in me in creating this, this card. But I took the evolved learning during the Lifebook journey and connections I made, and I used some of them, and some of them all the time and others less of the time. But what's beautiful here is I have a go-to list that I can call on whenever I feel the need to. If I start to feel overwhelmed, I've got a set of directions I can go straight to and say, I'm going to allow myself time to feel how I feel. I'm going to embody positive and empowering feelings. I'm going to do the 5 senses technique. I'm just going to take a break and walk away from everything that's overwhelming me. I'm going to do mindfulness, or I'm going to meditate, and we'll come on to meditation in a short while. But what I did learn back in 1997 was a technique through counseling, and I'm going to share that later with you. We do also have a PDF, and if anyone wants a copy of the handout from this event, just drop us your name in the chat and then we'll get the handout to you. And that includes this recipe card, and sitting behind each of those directions is more detailed instructions of what that particular direction means, so that you can then pick and choose, and you may choose different directions under different moments or times of overwhelm. But of course, finding a meditation, for instance, which will help you bring you into a calm state is really important. And with that, I'm actually going to hand over to Danny, who's going to take us through a meditation right now.
All righty. So just sit comfortably and just feel your body one of the tools that is really powerful is if you become aware of your senses and what's around you. So just take a minute to just sit there, feel your feet on the floor, notice what you hear, you can, what you see, just you smell anything, taste anything. You can always, that's immediately grounding because you're connecting with physical sensations. So right now we'll just be in your body. So maybe you want to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath in, exhale, and just let out any stress or anything you need to release. Let's do this one more time. Inhale in and exhale, release. And I'm going to take you into a meditation where you connect with what it feels like to not be overwhelmed. So if you can remember a time when you weren't overwhelmed, that's wonderful. But if you have been overwhelmed for so long, or maybe you just can't remember, I want you to try to imagine how you would feel if you weren't feeling overwhelmed. So maybe peacefulness, tranquility, calmness. So right now, take another deep breath in and center. Exhale, release. And take a moment to really think about the last time you experienced not being overwhelmed. And if you can't remember, then just imagine. But what happened? Remember that time and how you felt. Did you feel a sense of hope, a sense of freedom, a sense of peace? What do you imagine not being overwhelmed feels like? If you can't connect with the experience, just imagine. Would there be a sense of openness? Maybe you'd be able to breathe. How do you think, or how did you feel? And just take a moment to really connect with your feelings. Just breathe. Maybe you want to put your hands on your heart and just hold that sense in your heart of peace, calm, tranquility, whatever it is you associate with being free from overwhelm. What kind of things are you doing when you feel this way? What are you experiencing? How do you feel? How do you feel emotionally? How do you feel inside your body? Is there a sense of openness? Maybe your breathing is slower. Just be with that sensation. Do you hear anything? Do you see anything? Do you smell or taste anything during this experience? You can just go in and connect. How are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And let that feeling of openness fill your heart, or the sense of peace, whatever it is, let it just flow throughout your whole body. And then what words come up for you while you're doing this? Keeping your hands on your heart. Take a moment to feel grateful for this experience. Bringing your palms together in front. Wiggle your toes. Maybe move your body back and forth. Wiggle your fingers. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. And if you want to write down any of those words or anything that you experienced or you imagined, just take the time to jot a few notes.
Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome.
That was beautiful. So what was on your original list, on your brain dump list, that created your overwhelm? If you looked at each item or task individually, could you write next to it, and I don't necessarily write the second, but you might pick out one or two, what is it about that item or that task, that whatever you've written down, number one, number two, what is it that's overwhelming about it? Its impact or something about it that might be triggering the overwhelm. Write it down. Now, you might not have enough time to do all of those during this event, but just pick one or two, and then you can work through the rest of them afterwards. But what you're saying is, what is it on my list and what is it about it that's triggering or impacting me? So for my example here, which goes back to my 1997 one, my partner had collapsed. I had a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was driving around a motorway to get to work, and a phone call to say he's collapsed. And I was afraid he was going to die. What contributed then to my overwhelm was my baby's a few months old. He was a house dad. He's collapsed. Who's going to take care of our baby? Because that baby's needs need to be taken care of. But I also had to go to work each day, and having to leave and worry about how was I going to manage all of that? And it sounds simplistic, but I was worrying about my partner, having to leave my baby and get to work each day, and I felt out of control. So I had to look at each one, and this was the skill that was given to me by the counsellor at the time that says, write these things down. What is it that's contributing? And then what is it, the impact or the trigger? And what does that look and feel like to you? Because as you start to articulate it, you're starting to take a little bit, and I say a little bit, of control. And then the next bit, and I'm sorry this comes up a little bit smaller, but again, this is in the handout. How would you have dealt with it before you were feeling overwhelmed? So each item on your list, how would you have dealt with it before? And imagine yourself in a non-emotional state, all is calm, normal day. So using Danny's meditation of being out of that overwhelmed state and in that state of calmness, how would you deal with each of those things individually in a normal day? You're not in overwhelm anymore. You've taken yourself up out of that mindset and said, let me just look at this as a single item. What will I do? How would I deal with it now? How am I going to deal with it differently? Do I have to do that? Is it a must to or a have to? Must do's has a different sense of urgency. Have to is not as urgent as a must. Can you get some help? Can someone else do it for you? And what do you want to do? What do I have to do? What must I do? Is it yours? Why do you think you have to do it? Because somebody else won't do it? Why not? And what would really happen if you just dropped it off the list? What would really happen if you dropped it off the list? Are you stepping over into somebody else's responsibility? And just to give an example, I really want to give the example of Maria, Danny, but one of our group, she stepped over into the responsibility of her elderly parent and started to get overwhelmed with all the things that she had to do. but actually she'd crossed the barrier of it being somebody else's responsibility. And by stepping back and actually saying, actually, it's my mum's decision and choice, how and what she does, she could step back away from it because it wasn't her responsibility. We all think we've got to do things for other people, and actually we haven't. It's our choice what we do for other people, how much care we give. But it's also our choice how much care we give to ourselves. And of course, emotion creates the feeling of overwhelm. And when we get emotional about something that we're doing for somebody else, that heightens that state. So putting a masculine, and I use the word masculine framework around it, it's nothing more than a structure, putting a structure around all of the things that you've written on your list, and then working each one through, and really being hard and honest with yourself will allow you to guide your own flow of how you're then going to manage those things. And let your feminine energy choose the three most important things that are on your list. So to do that, you've created your list and you've gone through and you've deconstructed it a bit more, and you've gone through the questions that are here. But then, okay, now take your list, and I've only given an example of 3 in the handout. There's a lot more that I had on my list at the time. But look at the list, and it makes them see, you know, looking at these, it's just an ordinary day-to-day. My partner wasn't well. I had to take care of my baby and I had to go to work. Sounds quite ordinary. But actually what I had then also to do was, I was a new mum because she was only a matter of months old, and I'd gone back to work with a career. I had a senior career. My husband was a house husband. I felt I had to be Wonder Woman because I was certainly had to be Wonder Woman at work. So suddenly I was going to have to be Wonder Woman at home as well. I had to do it all. When my partner collapsed, I went into mental and emotional turmoil. My mind went into worst case scenario, which is where the emotional overwhelm comes, because you start to go off down a trail of thinking of, but this might happen, that might happen, and it's not even happened yet. And I couldn't think straight, and I couldn't see how I was going to get everything done. And I got to see a counsellor very, very quickly, and I was very fortunate with the job that I had at the time. And I was perfectly capable of doing multiple things. It was my job. But suddenly I couldn't do multiple things in my own life because emotionally it was overwhelming. And that was the key for me. It was about my mindset. And what the counsellor at the time helped me to see was looking at things and seeing how you can change them simply by changing your thoughts about them. And by writing them down and just going through this consistency allowed me to do that. And the piece that was missing for me back then was actually the earlier recipe card I showed you, which was actually having some simple practices that could help me bring the emotional state down, that then would allow me to deconstruct and say, what is it that's contributing to my current state? And how and what am I going to do with each one of those? And what I also then did, and what she helped me to do, was to look at my list and say the list is longer, and I'm just showing you my top 3, was to then say, okay, which one would you actually have to do first? If you're going to put them into a priority order, what's going to be your 1-1? What's going to be your 1.2? What's going to be your 1.3? And why? And what action are you actually going to take? And if you need to put a date around it, that's great. But what are you actually going to do for each of these tasks? What's the actual action you're going to take? Now, my list back then was far greater, and there were lots of other things. And again, it looks like an ordinary list, but all of them were very important for me. I had a baby, I had to go to work each day. Shopping was going to have to get done. I had to feed myself and my daughter and my husband. Novel idea, because back in 1997 things weren't quite how they are now with home deliveries and so on. They just didn't exist back then. Cleaning the house. I had a baby. I had to have a degree of cleanliness in the house. What about washing all the baby's clothes? What about all the ironing? Standard stuff. which back then I just saw that I had to do it, but by deprioritizing and reprioritizing, some of them just gradually worked themselves down the list to say, actually, I can give that one to somebody else. I can ask somebody for help. I can get somebody to do this for me. I can get somebody to do that for me. And that was worth its weight in gold. Of just being able to deconstruct and just get that sense of what was really urgent and what really could wait. Actually, I'd got enough shopping in the house that was going to last us for the next 3 days. So that wasn't as immediate as my mindset and state was allowing me to think it was. So it's just a simple way of deconstructing and putting a priority around it. And then handing stuff off that you really don't need to do. So the order of the action is you. You take action first, then deconstruct it. So take action for you. Recipe card, use the actions and directions that sit and fit and resonate best for you. And you can pick and choose those. But what's key is bringing that emotional state down, bringing yourself to the calmness, using the meditation that Danny took us through to visualize what does it look and feel like to not feel overwhelmed. There will be a moment in your past where you weren't overwhelmed, or you can visualize and create what that looks and feels like for you. Deconstruct your overwhelm, break it down into simple tasks and look at each one. And then take action on your top priorities. What really has to be done first? What really has to be done next? And what could you really leave off the list? I just want to sort of leave with an ending here. I actually worked with a client literally in the last 6 days, and we were talking through limiting beliefs. And that was actually creating some of their overwhelm, was their beliefs about what they could and couldn't do. And we created a new belief, which is just one that I've put here, which is value yourself more than all of the tasks that are on your list. It's, you know, it's almost the old saying of put your oxygen mask on first. So bring yourself into a state of calm. Bring yourself into a state of wellness. And then you can take action on whatever it is that you need to do. But shift the mindset first.
Exactly. I love that quote, Heidi.
I think we just put so much emphasis on all the things that we need, got to, have to, should do, and we tend to forget ourselves. That doesn't mean to say that some things still don't have to be done, but again, putting the priority around them. Because if you did none of them, what would really happen? What would really happen?
I always like to think about, you know, I'd have this like huge thing planned and I'm like, I can't miss it and I have to do this. And then I'd get like so sick that I couldn't show up and things still went on. Things still happened.
One of the other things that sort of springs to mind, and much more since I've, you know, been doing all the personal development journey over the sort of last 3 years, is when you don't do something or something equally worse seems to come at you, if you stop and just look at that for a moment, what is the gift and the lesson that that barrier or blockage or whatever it is that's come at you is trying to give you? And actually, it may be that it's simply trying to stop you, to say, stop, look at yourself and look after yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Take care of you. And everything else will start to take care of itself.
I'm always asking myself, what is the one thing, if done, makes everything else easier or unnecessary?
That's beautiful.
Alrighty. So
And that may be the one thing at the top of the list.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully.
So I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you liked the meditation today, there is one. It's a little bit different because I did it earlier. But if you want to have access to just the meditation that I led everybody in today, there's a link where you can access it at any time.
Yeah.
Via YouTube. And
the link's also going to be in the handout that we'll send to those that have expressed an interest in having that. So that's good too. Yeah. That one is that you may have some beliefs under there that says, I've got to do all these things. I set these for myself and they're the goals and therefore I've got to accomplish them. And oh my goodness, I didn't accomplish it and that bad me. Okay, and that may be because you were raised or brought up and certain things have been said in the past or happened in the past that's made you feel that way. But equally, look at the what didn't I do? And why didn't I do it? Is it because something bigger and better is coming its way? Is it because I needed to learn something more in order to do that? So just look at the rationale and reason why I didn't do it. Not that I didn't do it, because that's the bit that's going to make you feel bad about it, that I had this big goal and I really want to do that this year, but I've got to the end of the year and it's still there and I didn't even start it, and keep beating yourself up. But actually look at it and say, I didn't do that this year. So how and what am I going to do differently that may make that happen next year? How am I going to revise that goal that maybe gives it some extra emotion, inspiration that means I will do it? Or is there something that I didn't do around that because I needed to learn something more? So just expand your thinking around the what didn't get done. So how am I going to make that goal even better? Because I'm going to start that now. How am I going to make it bigger than better than what it would have been had I done it when I first intended to? Or maybe it just wasn't that important and other things you did do were more important. Or you didn't do it because you procrastinated because you've got a limiting belief about actually doing it in the first place. So ask yourself, what's underneath that thought? I didn't do that goal. What's underneath that? Just ask yourself the question out loud. I did not do the goal of X, Y, Z. What's underneath that? And then let your subconscious mind speak to you. Whatever it answers with, then ask again out loud, what's underneath that? And just keep drilling down until you stop coming up with answers or you start getting repeat answers. And then look at what's in front of you. What have you written down? And it will start to give you good clues as to what's really going on around not doing that goal. Danny, anything you want to add?
If I could unmute myself, I would. I'm having an issue with the mute button today. I don't really have anything to add because I think, you know, what you said is getting underneath the thought. You know, we like to talk about, especially in life book, is what is your why? Like, you know, and if there's a question like I keep asking over and over again, it's like, well, why am I asking this question? What is it? It is, again, what is the thought behind? What is the thought behind it? So
yeah, just keep drilling.
Yep.
Why have I not done this goal? And then ask why again and keep going down 7 levels of why and really get yourself drilling down into what's really going underneath it. What's going on? about being vulnerable and open and honest with yourself. I hope that helps.
I'd like to touch on something that was mentioned in the chat about someone who actually felt more overwhelmed with the meditation.
Okay.
So if you catch yourself feeling more overwhelmed with the meditation, it is my perception that it's possible that you may not be familiar with the feeling of what it feels like to not be overwhelmed. So, or you were focusing on the feeling, you know, or the feelings of overwhelm were so much that it was hard to get past that. So if when you did the meditation and you started feeling that sense of overwhelm, then, you know, focusing on something that makes you feel peaceful, or something, if you can come up with the words, if you came up with words of what not feeling overwhelmed feels like.
Yeah.
So what words came up for you, then try to associate with things where you felt peaceful or you have felt calm, you know, going back to like memories or situations. And if you don't have memories or situations, then try to imagine what that would be like. So what would you, so like if overwhelm, if you're feeling tight and you're feeling heavy and it's hard to breathe and you just want to kind of close up, then open yourself up, physically open your body up, breathe in, because when you're overwhelmed, we tend to close in. When you're not overwhelmed, you tend to open up. So just physically open your body up and just breathe. And, you know, in terms of if you're having trouble connecting with an emotion, if there is, I like to recommend too music. If there's a song that makes you feel peaceful or calm or joy, you know, put that music on and then physically open your body up and see if that helps. Because the thing is if you're not used, if you are so used to the feeling of overwhelm that you don't know how not to feel any other way, then you need to create an experience that is going to make you feel open.
Yeah.
And it's going to make you feel lighter. And that, you know, and the words are important, because if like peace, calm, tranquility, hope, openness, I mean, you might have other different words, but find out how you can feel those words. And music is great for that, because music, you know, you can listen to a song that makes you happy, you can listen to a song that makes you feel sad. So if you can find music that helps you to feel peaceful or calm,
yeah,
that's just another thing.
One of the items, one of the directions in the emotional recipe card about visualization, and that's about creating somewhere a safe place or space in your mind, in your subconscious mind, that you can take yourself to, that makes you feel calm. That may be, you know, it may be that you take yourself to the seafront. It may be that you take yourself to a field. It might be that you take yourself into the mountains or a forest. But in your mind, you can, in a split second, take yourself, elevate yourself and take yourself into that place, that safe place, where you get that sense of calm, where you can do your breathing. And as Danny said, you're honoring your body, you're honoring yourself. And during the meditation, the feeling of overwhelm is because there's an emotion that's trying desperately to come up. And being able to recognize and allow yourself to feel that emotion. Don't try and suppress it and hold it back. Let the emotion of overwhelm come out. And if that means that you need to go and have a scream, a cry, a rant to let some of that energy out, then do that. This is about whatever you need to release that emotion, even if for a moment. So take yourself somewhere beautiful, somewhere calm in your mind. You can, in a matter of seconds, feel like you spent a whole day at the beach by using creative visualization. Mm-hmm. And that in itself can give you that moment of calm. And actually, I would applaud you and I would honor yourself for the fact that you felt overwhelmed during the meditation, because your body is trying to give you a message. So honor your feelings and give yourself a damn big warm hug.
Someone else shared their biggest takeaway from this workshop is to remind myself to stop in a time of overwhelm and assess the situation to check if it really is that dire.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
Yes. Yes. Just what's the real sense of urgency here? Yeah. And, you know, again, back to the recipe, one step at a time, but make the first step the step for you.
Yeah.
To get yourself into that calmer state and get help. Just being able to say to somebody, I need some help. Can you help me? And for those of you that are in the Lifebook community, oh my goodness, what a rich place to be, to ask for help. If you're not, then come talk to us on the Facebook group for freedom, you know, from our inner freedom, outer vision, and share, and we'll happily share back some thoughts and additional tools, techniques. So we're on Facebook. We're also on Instagram.
I just tell it we're on Instagram.
There you are. Thank you.
I'll post the Instagram thing if you want to. We've just started. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't just started in terms of our journey, but we've just started this whole new sort of plethora of sharing. If there's any last asks, questions? If not, it's been lovely to meet you and hope to see you at future events, not because we necessarily want you to be needing all of our tools and techniques, but they're handy to have in your pocket. They're handy to have in your kit bag, because you never know what's going to crop up. So thank you.
I'm trying to find the Instagram link. It's
okay.
It's been one of those weeks.
Instagram is not my thing, so I can't help you. I can't do it.
It was one of those things I was like, oh, I need to get that link ahead of time so that I have it. And I got all the other links. So I'm working on it, guys.
Not something I've got. But again, we have got them in the handout. So
yeah. Here we go. Got it. I'll put this. This is the. I can spell Instagram.
And what we'd also love to hear is how you get on with any of the tools and techniques. What did you find over time has worked for you? What's helped? Because that's the most important. How did it help you?
Yep.
And how are you getting on? And know that you can. Okay.